I was luckily able to watch Killers of the Flower Moon on the day of release. I don't know about the rest of the world, but here in the UK, it seems to have a lot less show timings than I initially would have expected for a Martin Scorcese and a Robert De Niro and Leonardo DiCaprio starring film. But I was able to watch this 3-hour, 30-minute historical movie, and to be honest, it's a pretty mixed bag. So be sure to watch this video to the end so you can get a better idea if this movie is worth the movie ticket price tag, and I've also tried to keep this review as spoiler free as possible. But before we begin, don't forget, if you love anything to do with historical movies or historical TV shows, to subscribe to my channel HistorySpark. So I just want to start off by saying that Killers of the Flower Moon did a fantastic job of recreating the historic backdrop of 1920s America, and I felt like you're actually looking at a very realistic and accurate depiction of that era, and Martin Scorcese has nailed it in terms of set piece, costume design and world building. But before I delve further into this review, I just want to give a quick overview of the plot, and that is the Osage Native American tribes are living in Oklahoma on what is considered Indian tribal land, and to everyone's astonishment, the land that they are living on has a tremendous amount of oil under the surface. And this results in the Osage tribe becoming some of the wealthiest people in the Americas due to the leases and income they can generate from the oil-rich land. And the plot of the Killers of the Flower Moon focuses around Osage Indian murders, an event that would later become known as the Reign of Terror, where 60 wealthy Osage members with oil rights were brutally murdered, but the actual figure is rumored to potentially be in the hundreds. And the Killers of the Flower Moon does an excellent job of portraying the events leading up to these murders and the aftermath that would follow. And it is great to see such a little known part of history getting brought to the big screen at such a tremendous scale. The plot focuses primarily on three main characters: William King Hale, portrayed by Robert De Niro, who is a rich cattle herder who lives amongst the Osage tribe, his nephew Ernest Burkhart, who is portrayed by Leonardo DiCaprio, and Molly Burkhart, who is portrayed amazingly by Lily Gladstone. And I can confirm that all three of these stars do an amazing job of bringing their characters to life, as they are all complex characters, and the three leads are able to nail every emotion and action required of them with finesse and realism, and you really feel like you are sat there in the room witnessing two people have a genuine conversation and encounter. The only slight criticism I have in this department is that Leonardo DiCaprio does mumble a lot of his lines. This seems to be the latest fashion in a lot of movies for some reason these days, but I can definitely see someone whose first language is not English struggling to understand what Leonardo DiCaprio is saying sometimes within the film. This is the only small criticism I have with Killers of the Flower Moon. The dialogue, soundtrack and screenplay are all amazing, and they do a good job of keeping the viewer gripped into the complex storyline of the film. And here we come to perhaps my biggest gripe with the movie. Well, second biggest actually, and I'll explain a little bit about what my biggest concern with this film was a little bit later on in this video. So the actual premise of the storyline is really interesting. Osage Indians are getting murdered for their wealth and property rights, but no one is able to figure out who's behind it, and the government and the local police could not care any less that innocent Native Americans are frequently being murdered and killed. But this film literally moves at a snail's pace, and I'm usually okay with that, but even by my standards, there were just so many scenes and conversations that could have easily been cut, and they would have not affected the flow of the movie in any way or form. There's literally just so much conversation and build up to an event that when it actually does occur, the payoff isn't always there because it just took so long to get to the point, and by then the audience member has lost their focus and attention. I really think this movie could have been cut down to 2.5 hours and it would have been much better. There are just so many characters getting introduced and removed from the film that it gets hard to keep track of all the names and people that get mentioned within conversations. And outside the three main characters, you really have no emotional bond or interest in any of the secondary characters and what happens to them within the film. I really feel like this movie could have used a bit more time in post-production and editing just to slim off the little bit of the access around the edges. And here we come to my biggest complaint with Killers of the Flower Moon, which is the ending of this film. It is so poorly done that I was actually shocked that after 3.5 hours this was what the payoff was, and it was just so abrupt and out of place. After what seems like an eternity, we finally get to the climax of the film. We are anxiously waiting to see what is happening with our characters and what the future holds for them. But what we actually get is none of that. Everything happens off screen. The ending is literally a flash forward, and you kind of just get a montage at the end explaining everything that happened to the characters, and that's the end. That's it. No payoff, no actual portrayal of the characters at the end, no conclusion, no appropriate ending as far as I'm concerned. And I'm sure that everyone knows that it doesn't matter how you start, it's always how you finish, and this movie just finished in such a lackluster and poor way. And for me personally, it just ruined the whole film for me, and it made me feel like I had wasted a lot of my time for nothing that resulted in anything substantial. So I know there's a lot of moaning and groaning on my part here, but I just want to wrap things up by saying that Killers of the Flower Moon is in no way or form a bad film. It has many excellent aspects, especially in terms of acting, world building and character development. But it just struggles so much with pacing and providing an interesting story and a satisfactory ending, in my humble opinion. So I guess the big question here is, would I recommend you watch Killers of the Flower Moon? And my answer is yes, but I would say it is a movie that you would be better off watching at home when it becomes available to stream, rather than one that I think you need to pay the price of a movie ticket for and then have to sit in an uncomfortable chair for 3.5 hours. So overall, I would give Killers of the Flower Moon a 6 out of 10 because it just doesn't live up to the hype, and the rushed ending of the film just left a sour taste in my mouth. But if you have seen the film, please be sure to let me know in the comments below if you agree with my rating and comments. And if you don't, I'm sure you'll be more than happy to tell me just how wrong I am. But remember, if you love anything to do with historical movies or historical TV shows, then subscribe to my channel, HistorySpark. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.